What's up? BigHerc916. Positivity, motivation. You know, we do it over here. Never settle for average. I'm always trying to lace you guys up to get you to think out the box and to look at things from an objective point of view. Don't get too caught up in your emotions. I really don't try to get into, the political thing, however you decide to vote, who you get behind, because at the end of the day, these people are in play to implement a game plan. Doesn't matter which side you vote for because they play one the long game, the other the short game. So all roads lead to the same at the end of the day. And you can argue that it's different, but they know the psychology of the people, man. And they know that emotions can trigger behavior which is directed for whatever narrative is at play. So we all heard about the DC shooting of the two National Guard. Condolences to their family. But it says here, New York Times, DC shooting suspect could not tolerate the violence of his CIA-backed unit in Afghanistan, a childhood friend said. It says the CIA and the Afghan intelligence official said the shooter had been part of an Afghan partner force known as Zero Unit, trained and supported by the agency in the southern province of Kandahar. The Afghan refugee accused of shooting two National Guard members in Washington, D.C., fought in the late days of U.S. war there as part of Zero Unit, a paramilitary force that worked with the CIA, according to a person briefed on investigation and an Afghan intelligence officer familiar with the matter. The unit were known for their brutality and labeled death squads by human rights. The suspect, identified by federal officials as Ramanullah Lakanawal, excuse me for mispronouncing that name, 29, grew up in the village of Eastern Province of Khost. A childhood friend who asked to be identified only as Muhammad because he feared Taliban reprisal, said that Mr. Lakanawal had suffered from mental health issues and was disturbed by casualties his unit had caused. New York Times article right there. But this guy happens to be the person who shoots two U.S. National Guards. And you think that's coincidence? And not to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole, but this person, I mean, look, man, I know I've talked about the National Guard coming into places to make the city safer, right? And these guys, I told them before that the more crimes you're committing, thinking you're getting away with something, they're setting you up for the long play, right? The long play was to have crime so out of control that basically every major city had the National Guard and they could try to implement martial law. And ultimately, the long game is to take away your guns. If you don't have no gun, you can't defend yourself. And that's one of the most dominant rights in the Bill of Rights is the right to bear arms. Because when England had, when they decided to break away, they knew that without having arms, they couldn't defend themselves. And that's the whole reason why they included that in the Bill of Rights. But, they push really strong against guns and, get rid of your guns. So what do? Just beg for mercy. Beg for mercy and you be obedient. But that's the game, man. And I don't want to get into the whole gun argument, but, I tell you, man, the bad guys, they don't get guns from the regular places. Just put it that way. But anyways, the National Guard, right? So when you have violence, you deploy the National Guard because the local law enforcement can't handle it, which is all by design. these states that are allowing the crime to be out of control, they get funding from the federal government for crime control, and then it allows them to fund programs. And if they didn't have high crime, they wouldn't get the funding. It's a shit show, man. This is a game they're playing on. It's the long game. And I'm just lacing you up because the more you think you're comfortable with running around doing the dumb shit, the long play is to have some type of biometrics or AI implementation in your neighborhood, and then they're watching everything. See, when you were able to get away and hustle and do your thing, look, I'm not knocking your whatever you got going on, as long as you're not hurting nobody, but all of that's going to end once they figure out how to put the surveillance at a level that goes beyond anything you've seen in China. And if you think that's not what's in the future, it's a surveillance state, man. It's the Matrix. But they have to have little things to trigger to get people to back the play. And like I said, I don't know for certain what this guy who, was his handler, who, if he was, of course, I mean, he worked with the CIA over there, man. So you think he's just coincidentally, and, the whole immigration thing, which, they let so many people in unvetted. You mean to tell me they didn't know this guy? Come on, man. This is the game, man. I'll put it to you in a short form. I was at a prison in Sheridan, Oregon, a medium in 2003, right? This prison was like a college campus, man. No violence, very productive as far as your mental state. Everybody got along. There wasn't really any racial tensions. They had live music there. I mean, the guys would perform. They had art. They had I remember they had concerts. They used to have these like weightlifting competitions, basketball tournaments, soccer tournaments, softball tournaments, all this stuff, man. Very conducive, man. I mean, to get your mind right, to get out and do something positive with yourself, right? Well, they brought in the warden from, I believe it was Marion, and he was a cold piece of shit. But this is what they do. They bring him in. He looked around. There wasn't that much barbed wire and stuff there, right? And then the food was good. They had, eggs and stuff in the mornings. I mean, you had eggs probably 3 or 4 times, like 4 times a week, right? First thing he did was he got rid of the egg breakfasts. All you had was grits and shitty pastries every morning. Only on the weekends would you get eggs, maybe on a Saturday and Sunday, right? And only for brunch, not for breakfast. So you got rid of that. See, the first thing is disrupt the food. That's your only comfort in prison. Once he disrupted the food, he then proceeded to implement a person onto the compound that would disrupt the balance of power, because according to prison politics, certain individuals on certain yards require certain diplomatic channels to be in play. And he knew by doing this would disrupt that. And then he could without telling the inmates to riot, he knew that it would cause a riot. These guys are genius, man. Prison is the micro of the macro of the street. So this is what I'm telling you, right? No different than implementing this Afghan refugee, illegal immigrant. I don't know, however he came over here, but the same thing, right? Implement this guy. So they put him in a compound. Within 3, maybe 4 weeks tops, this guy became known to other people, which created an issue, and this issue required a reaction. And so essentially it kicked off a riot. The riot meant that they were able to take away rights. You don't have no rights in prison anyways. You're very limited. But it allowed them to take the weights, took all the weights. This place had a weight pile. I mean, man, everybody, pig iron, dumbbells up to like 130s, 150s. I mean, dudes is in there on swole. They took all the weights, right? Then they went in and they took a lot of the wood, because they had wood desks in some of the cells. It was like the cell, it was a cell that was human friendly. Wasn't all like cement and metal like a USP. They took that out, right? And stripped all that out of the cells. Then this piece of shit, right? He put out a bulletin. He made it seem like somebody had dropped a kite, that there was a gun on the compound. Now, how did an inmate get a gun on the compound? Right? This piece of shit. So they raid the compound, unit by unit. They start about 10 at night, 11 at night, right when you're supposed to go to bed, right? And they go unit to unit. They have ski mask on, like the mask you guys see these guys wearing out here. And they had firearms. They were strapped. Came in the units, and they put the guns on us. Had us in boxers, no shirts, and flip-flops, shower shoes, all chained up. And they went in there, each cell, they hit our unit probably about 3 in the morning, and they went in there and they were playing kung fu fighting, and they were destroying the cells. So they basically took everything out your cell, anything that they thought that they could take this off, and they were laughing, giggling. These are the same people, right? Say, for instance, would be a person on the street that acts like they're your friend, and they work in maybe local law enforcement or government, but when they put the ski mask on and all this stuff, they basically terrorize you. And I'm not saying that local law enforcement or government does that to everybody, but I'm just telling you how they flip, right? So they tore up the cells. Horrible. Man, you're just boiling. You can't do nothing. They're looking at you. Keep your head down. Don't look at us. Keep your head down. They got guns on us, 9mm, in the unit. In the unit, on the compound, right? So that goes on. They tear it up. We're sitting out there in our boxers for about 3 hours, right? Get in your cell. We go in there, lock it back down. You're cleaning up your cell till about probably 6 in the morning. I mean, dude, the day is done, right? Then they tell you to go to chow. These pieces of shit, right? So they tell you to go to chow, and they make everybody leave the unit, even if you don't want to. And then what they do, they're lined up along the path to the to the chow hall, and they got guns on us, and then they got guys on the roofs with look like snipers. It's an intimidation thing, right? And then guess who's outside the chow hall when you're coming out? It's the piece of shit warden. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Right? Looking at you crazy. Then the next day, 2 days later, right, they're normal again. The same COs that had the guns on you are trying to be cool. Hey, man, how you doing, so-and-so? After these guys flip the script, that quick, they would have assaulted you, but now they want to be your friend. This is a goddamn game they play with us, man. And it doesn't matter if it's blue, red. These people are gaming the masses because they don't look at you as being part of their clique. You're not in the club, And like I said, I don't get involved in all the politics stuff, man. But the DC shooting thing is tragic, but it's one of those things that they know. Like, you think that did they think they set that up purposely so they can implement more deployment of National Guard? I mean, look, man, I'm not going to keep you long with this stuff, man, because like I said, I'm just trying to create an open dialogue and to get your minds working out the box, right? And to not be ignorant and to kind of see the big picture. I'm not in a position to change anything. I'm just awakening consciousness and creating conversation. You'd be surprised how many things you have in common with somebody who maybe may think somewhat differently on certain policies, but overall have the same values per se. But The game is to divide, conquer, and to play us into a position of submission and monitor everything. They're spending billions and billions of dollars on AI, surveillance, biometrics, and all this stuff. But why aren't they putting that into infrastructure of education, schools, communities, transportation? You still don't have a bullet train over here. You still got kids who can't pass the education competency test. I mean, why aren't we putting those billions over there? Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Read this book a bunch of times in prison. Things like this you'll never read on the street. They won't talk about this, but I'm just going to share something with you guys real quick. This is one of the things in the book. Diversion, the primary strategy. Experience has proven that simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control of the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic system principles on one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand. This is achieved by disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities by providing a low quality program of public education in mathematics, logic, systems, design, and economics, and by discouraging technical creativity, engaging their emotions, increasing their self-indulgence, and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by unrelenting emotional affrontations and attacks, mental and emotional rape by way of constant barrage of sex, violence, and wars in the media, especially the TV and the newspapers, giving them what they desire in excess, junk food for thought, and depriving them of what they really need, rewriting history and law and subjecting the public to the deviant creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal need to highly fabricated outside priorities. These preclude their interest in and discovery of the silent weapons of social automation technology. The general rule is that there is a profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems, then offer the solutions. This is game, bro. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. They said that this book was uncovered by accident on July 7th, 1986 by an employee of Boeing Aircraft, purchased a surplus of the IBM copier from scrap parts at a sale, and discovered inside details of a plan hatched in the embryonic days of the Cold War, which called for the control of masses through manipulation of industry, people's pastimes, education, and political leanings. It's called for a quiet revolution, putting brother against brother and diverting the public's attention from what is really going on. I don't know if it's this is it. You can find it. Now they don't, this hasn't been validated, but what do you think, man? Does it sound like what's going on today? This is back in 1986. Top secret, confidential. BigHerc916. Subscribe, share. You know how we do it. Don't forget to stop by the BigHerc916 store and pick you up a sticker for your car, or a patch, or a sticker for your laptop, or maybe a beanie, or read one of the many books that BigHerc916 has authored. You know how we do it.